We're talking about an exciting service learning project called First Year Students, Pen Pals, and Educational Transitions. It's campus to community. It's campus to community. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Hannah Baggott-Anderson, Lecturer of English and Literacy Commons Faculty Fellow here at UNCP. With me today to talk about his service learning project is Dr. Scott Hicks, English Professor and Teaching and Learning Center Director, and his service learning teaching assistant, Hannah Middleton, who is a junior at UNCP, majoring in special education in the Honors College. Thanks for joining me today, Scott and Hannah.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
My first question, Scott, to begin, will you tell us a little bit about your service learning project and what that looks like?
This is a service learning project that I do in UNV 1000, which is first year seminar. This is for first year students who are starting college, and we want them to think about how they study in college, how they use their time, how they become leaders, how they become great students. One of the best ways to do that is to write letters or to explain that or to put it into writing. And it's a wonderful thing then to inspire other students, say at CIS Academy with whom we work, those 6th, 7th, and 8th graders, to think about college for themselves. So over the course of the semester, the students in UNV 1000 talk in class about how they applied to college, how they decided to come to college, what they study, how they study, why they have chosen the majors they've chosen, the minors they want to study. And they write about those ideas and those questions to their pen pals. Their pen pals also write similar letters back. How did they come to CIS Academy? What do they want to be or what do they want to do once they've finished their time there? Do they want to go to college and why would they want to go to college? And so it's a wonderful conversation between my students and their students. For me, I get to see what my students are thinking and asking questions about. For their students give my students great advice, like how to study for homework and how to do quizzes and how to do well on tests, and it's great for my students to hear from middle school students how to be a great student, because I think they learn a lot in those early ages, and I think it's good to hear that from them. And then at the end of the semester, we have a celebration that Hannah organizes, where the students get to meet their pen pals for the first time. It's a surprise until then. So they know names, but they haven't met the individuals or seen the faces and know who they've been writing to. And it's just a wonderful time to celebrate and to meet and to play some games and have a meal together.
So exciting. I didn't know you did this, so this is great. Could you let us know what CIS Academy is and how you formed that relationship?
CIS Academy stands for Communities and Schools Academy. It's a charter middle school and it's located next to campus. It's near the old Indian Education Building in high school. The students there are 6th through 8th grade. The staff at the school have been there for many years and they are very dedicated and incredibly proactive in getting the best resources and opportunities for their students. So it's been a wonderful partnership for that sort of long-standing, experienced leadership at the school who also become good mentors for my students.
Great. And Hannah, Dr. Hicks mentioned that you'll be planning something at the end of the semester, but could you talk to us a little bit more about your role in this project throughout the semester?
So as a service learning teaching assistant, I talk to students if they have any problems with their letters. I print all of the letters off and address them to their pen pals and take them over to CIS Academy and then bring the pen pals letters back. And I plan the party. That's a huge part of my job.
Have you started planning that already? What does that look like?
Yeah, it's a struggle sometimes because finding an area on campus big enough to accommodate that many students and their pen pals is can be problematic. But we're hoping this year to have it in the lobby of GPAC, so we'll have plenty of space. So that's the big part. Once that's planned, I talk to the photographer, playing games and activities and decorations. It's just a lot. So I've been trying to start planning it early, but it's coming along.
Yeah, it's always a challenge to do those big events, because how many students do you have in your class and how many pen pals are there?
There's 18 in Dr. Hicks' freshman seminar class, but we have 48 altogether. So it's 3 UNV 1000 classes.
Okay.
And then obviously 48 pen pals corresponding.
Wow. Big group.
Yeah.
We work with Teagan Deckard's sections of UNV 1000. So most of the Honors College students do this service learning project for their UNV 1000 credit.
Okay, that's great. So is this something that you do every year?
It is.
Okay, how long have you been doing it?
I think this is year 3. I remember we did it, I believe we started during the year that Hurricane Matthew struck. It's sad that we're facing some of the same challenges now with the students being out of school and concerned about where they're going to be or when they return to school. But I think it's been a good project in terms of sustaining some outside connections for students and keeping them connected to things in the community.
Absolutely. In those letters, so you're talking mainly about college or deciding to go to CIS. Do other personal things come in, like response to the hurricane?
They do. I remember in the letters after Matthew, the CIS students would write about whether their homes had been flooded or whether they'd had to move. I had my students write a letter back sort of checking in and seeing what kinds of needs they had, so they were able to give them some encouragement, I think. Some of the students will tell my students to follow their Instagram pages or their social media accounts, which I tell my students you don't want to be involved in that way.
Right.
But it's really, I think it's really interesting the way the CIS students see their pen pal as someone who cares about them and someone who could give them some great ideas, and they ask some questions I think that are pretty revealing. Like, I heard that college is way too expensive. How can you ever pay for college? And then my students can explain about financial aid or scholarships. I think it's also interesting they'll ask, so do you have to go to class in college? Can you skip class? Do you skip class? Do you go to parties? And they'll explain how they balance their time between classes and how they decide what classes to take and how they decide whether they'll party or not this weekend or whether they have an exam to do. So they get a lot of sort of frank questions from their CIS pen pals, but they give a lot of good advice, I think, about sort of planning your time and thinking about what you want to do and why you do it and who your friends are and who you count on.
Yeah, I love that. Do you think those letters are honest when they write back about how they split their time, or does it encourage them?
Brutally honest. Sometimes I find the letters, because I see all of them, our students at beginning, they're trying to be very college, they're using the right language and they're very careful what they say, but slowly it becomes more like, I'm dying here, can you do anything about what am I supposed to do? And then the CIS Academy letters are always brutally honest about everything. It's the greatest thing, just seeing these students saying that they hate school or they love school or they hate this teacher, and they just share all the details of that. It's great.
I love that. What has been your students' response, like from either of you? What has been the class response to this project?
I think for my students, I think what they like most is the celebration when they get to see the CIS Academy students. I think it's difficult in the beginning to visualize who they're writing to. So I think they may struggle in the beginning, as you say, to sort of they're speaking as if they're some stereotypical college student who has to say the right things, and then as they get to know their pen pal, they begin to open up more. I think by the end, I think they really enjoy that time to be able to say what they think and to be able to express how they're feeling. For me, I get to respond to the letters in terms of giving advice or trying to answer questions. But for them, I think what they get out of it is that chance to be a mentor and an inspiration to someone else, even as it's okay to say, I'm not going to make it, I don't know how this is going to work, what's going on here.
Yeah. I think it's been hard, especially this semester, because of the hurricane. Our students actually haven't gotten any responses back from their pen pals yet, so they have been struggling to be engaged in the project and continue to hand in their letters on time. And kind of the last semester when we did it, it was much more personal because they were responding to letters from their pen pal. But this semester, because of the hurricane, it's been a little messed up. And so I can definitely see how these students are struggling more to be engaged and be excited about the project. But I'm hoping that the party at the end, where they get to meet them, and it'll be a good end to that.
To make it matter, because
Yeah.
you have to adapt, right? We've all had to adapt a little bit in light of the hurricane, but that's okay. How many letters have you had them construct, or what's the plan for the number of letters?
We have 5 letters over the semester, so 5 from our students and 5 replies. So far, we're on
Letter 3.
Yes, letter 3. So I'm planning on taking letter 1 over soon, and hopefully we'll get some response, and then I'll take over the next 2. But it's really exciting because I feel like they kind of build on each other over time. And so by the end of the semester, they know each other pretty well, and then they finally meet, and it's just like this culmination of that.
Do you know if those relationships are sustained after this project?
I'm not aware that they are.
Okay.
I think it'd be interesting at some point, I think, to put together a book of letters. I think that could be interesting.
Yeah.
Because some of the letters they write are incredibly honest and personal and humorous sometimes and serious in others. And I think it'd be neat to see those letters maybe in 5 or 6 years when the CIS Academy students are applying to college or community college and thinking about next steps after high school.
That would be incredible, just to have that record of what they've said, or even just what people around them have said. My next questions, I've got a couple more, but I'm wondering, I was my understanding, I guess I didn't realize that this was done in a freshman seminar class. So I had originally been wondering, how we fit service learning into English courses, and this is still, in a way, English-based. We're writing here. So I just wanted to know what either of you think, really, because I know, Hannah, you're in, at least some level of education, thinking about communication. What does service learning bring to a course like that in general?
Well, this is the service learning project that I do in University 1000, but I also do a couple in my English classes. In Composition 1, English 1050, Hannah is also the teaching assistant for that class. We work with an elementary school in Laurinburg. And the reason we do that is English 1050 is about critical reading and writing in response. And I want students to think about how younger students, say in the elementary grades, learn how to read and become and to achieve their skills of literacy. So that's a wonderful way for students to think about their own reading and writing practice as they see reading and writing being taught. And it's a wonderful way for us to give back to that elementary school at the same time.
Right.
I also do service learning in English 1060, which is Composition 2. And this one, we've changed this several times because we struggle with what works in that setting. We want students to write research essays in their discipline, their chosen major. And it's difficult then to have a class of 20 sort of working with 20 different organizations or associations. So we're still trying to figure out what works there.
Last semester we had 20 students, all different, and everything from the sciences to theater to education, and it was, I had to help the students come up with different service projects related to their research topic, which was a struggle, but I think it's good to broaden their horizons of what they can do in the community. And what I liked about the 1060 was not only did the students learn a lot about different service opportunities off campus in the surrounding community, but I learned a lot about the service projects available and a lot about their topics as well. So it was a learning experience all around.
Yeah, because you have to basically, I'd imagine, remembering the experience of my own TA, have to do that project with them in a sense, right?
Yeah.
Do you remember one that's worth talking about?
I've got one that sticks out, a student who is doing an essay on organ donation and organ transplantation.
Ooh.
And in a lot of ways, her research essay, I think, might become a model for how I would like to do it in the future.
Oh, great.
She partnered with the National Association for Organ Transplantation and Donation, and that organization had lots of public awareness materials that they could share with her, flyers, posters, sign-up sheets, all sorts of videos, and and materials that she could share. She signed up with them. She then did some tables in the UC and was able to sign students up to become organ donors.
Oh, wow.
So this actually helped her learn what the National Association or Professional Association thought about her subject, but it also gave her the tools and materials she needed to be able to teach others. So I found that that was a really good project.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A fantastic example.
I'm trying to think. There were so many.
Yeah.
And I actually kept like a journal of, because I had to meet with them and I'd have to discuss their projects with them and we'd brainstorm ideas. And I think that one, and I'm trying to think. We had one a student who she was researching, what was it? It was in psychology. She met with a psychology club and she joined, and then
Mental illness, I believe, and
yeah,
stigma.
mental illness.
Okay.
And she gave a presentation, like she researched all of this and presented to the psychology club and a couple classes as well on her research. And it was just not only her learning more about the topic, but her learning how to present that to other people and getting involved on campus in this club that she had never been involved in before. It was really great. I enjoyed hearing about her topic.
Yeah, that ability to like plug in anywhere on campus and where it's needed, right? That in a sense is service, because I think a lot of the time we assume or think that we have to go out and find a community partner that's far off campus, right? But there's so much work to do here.
Yeah, it was interesting because at the beginning of the semester, I was thinking that, and I mean, I have experience in this as a TA, but I was thinking that it has to be like a very tight, there's only a small amount of things we can do. But as the semester went on, I realized that there is so many different things. We had a student who wrote to congressmen and the governor. We had students who did tabling. We had a student who started a student organization on campus. So it was a wide variety of projects that we ended up doing with them.
Yeah, and all in the context of supporting research and critical reading, yes.
What I find is that students have been trained to be able to write an essay according to what a grader or a teacher wants. And I think that what service helps me do is give them some challenging context or new questions or different sense of their audience that makes them think and process and conceptualize differently. So when that student is trying to figure out what the national organization says about organ donation, or writing to your senator and representative, governor and president about an issue, it demands that you know something more about it, that you're able to present yourself clearly. It helps you then share some different information. And I find it challenges students who might otherwise do really well and not be challenged, but it really challenges them in neat ways.
Absolutely. I like thinking about that in terms of changing up, especially, I don't know if either of you have seen this, but writing in particular is challenging for our first year students here at UNCP. Is that something that y'all talk about when you're planning? And
I personally think that, especially in the freshman seminar class, the letters provide a easy, low stakes way that students can start writing, which I think is really, really good. I remember as a freshman student, I didn't know how to write at all. I didn't have a lot of experience with it, and it was a struggle for me to go from high school writing, which was very low stakes, to all of a sudden having to write these huge papers in these classes on concepts that I didn't understand. But what I like about the Pen Pal project is it allows students to slowly transition into writing bigger and more complex things. It's a really easy, low stakes writing, which I think is really good for new students coming in.
yeah.
And I like for students to write about things from a position of experience or expertise. They know what they want to study, they know how they came to college, they know how they spend their time. They can write about these things. So we can use their experience to do good for others, but we can also help them write their way into their own sense of self as a college student.
Yeah. I really like that because in the past, at least with my composition courses, I would have students do low stakes writing. Love that phrase. So important in terms of teaching. But I'd have them do like private journaling. But then in the end, sometimes I wonder, well, does this matter if you're the only one that's experiencing it? And they have a good response to it, but I like the idea that this is touching someone else, right? And especially at that level that, when those students are at a transitional time too, right?
Yeah, I think it definitely gives our students a fresh perspective on the community and what these students are going through, and realizing that everyone at different points in their life is going through different things. So these students, they're getting ready to transition to high school.
Right.
They're mostly 8th grade students, and they have that perspective. Well, our students, they're transitioning to college and having to learn all these new things and how to just how to make it. And I think it definitely helps their perspective, and it gives them a way to give back at the same time.
Yeah.
And I'll be selfish too, that when I did this class without service learning, no one wants to sit in class and say that they bombed a test or that they were struggling to learn how to study or they don't understand this. In these letters, they have to say that in a way to a middle school student. And we can approach our class discussions not as, what kind of problems are you having this week, but as, how are you going to write your letter? What advice are you struggling with? If you had to help someone learn to study for an exam, what advice would you give them? And we can go around the class, and it's a way of generating content for the letters in a way that doesn't make any single student say, hey, I need some tips on how to pass this exam because I'm struggling.
Yeah.
So I found it a nice way to help students write from experience, but also to gain experience, to talk about things in a less personal way, but they can be put to really good personal use.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it makes students feel as less scared to be honest about where they are.
Yeah.
And I think that's good for us to be able to see, well, maybe they need more help in this, or maybe their pen pal can give them some middle school advice on how to make it. I think it's really good.
Yeah, to keep going, because I think about too, giving them this project where they have control over what they're saying to a younger person puts them in a position of power that a lot of them don't feel like they have here, especially as first years. I don't know if that's ever come up in terms of...
Not in terms of discussion, but I can see that dynamic playing out. They have to be responsible, they have to be thoughtful about what they say and how they say it. And so for some students, it's a sort of learning process, how to write a letter, how to respond to an audience. I think it's wonderful for them to see middle schoolers as experts.
Yeah.
Because the middle schoolers do give them techniques, and they give them approaches, or they give them questions to ask, and they synthesize or crystallize some of the key questions. What do you want to do? Why do you do this? Why do you want to do this? Why would anyone want to do this? And they have to explain sometimes what they're thinking, but they also learn from others that they're thinking about these big philosophical questions as well.
Right.
What am I going to do after middle school? How am I going to, what do I imagine my life to be like? And those are big questions.
Yeah. Oh, and good questions too.
Yeah.
I'll say, just to transition a little bit away from the project itself, I am wondering, Hannah, how you particularly got into applying to be a teaching assistant and how you formed this relationship with Dr. Hicks.
So I was looking for an on-campus job, and I was talking to Sandy Jacobs, and I told him that I was looking for something not too many hours on campus, enjoyable people to work with, and he asked me if I would like to be a TA, and I applied, and here I am. And then I met Dr. Hicks and Dr. Decker, and I've been doing it ever since. But I really, really enjoy it. It's been a real learning experience for me. And at first, when I first got into this being a TA, I started out with this project, I was a little nervous. I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know how it was going to go. I don't generally like to talk to people I don't know, and it was a learning curve for a while. But I have definitely I can see my growth as a student through being a teaching assistant, and I'm very thankful that I was able to be part of this.
Yeah.
So Hannah does a lot of work. So she's managing 3 service learning projects for me, and she's also assisting the UNV 1000 with Dr. Decker's sections. So she's managing the pen pals throughout the semester, the elementary school visit in 1050 during next week, and then an African American literature service project at the end of the semester. And all throughout that time, she's keeping great notes on students so she's able to answer any questions they have, reach out to different groups to help them. She has office hours that help students write through some of their essays. If they have questions, they can go to her. And she's also coming to the classroom. So Hannah does an incredible amount of work and is an incredible resource for the students in my class.
And does that help you out with your time too?
Incredibly.
Yeah.
I know that everything's going to get done from her side. We can meet together, talk about what we need to do, and we just go from there.
Yeah. Oh,
it's a lot. We do. I do a lot. I think I have 6 classes this semester, and some of them are more involved than others, but I really enjoy it. And Dr. Hicks, I spend a lot of time in his office. We work through a lot of stuff, so it's a group effort.
Yeah, a symbiotic relationship there. Yeah. Dr. Hicks, do you have plans to do this again or to change up anything in the future with any of your courses in terms of service learning?
I will definitely continue the UNV 1000, and I'm always sort of reconfiguring or reworking the English 1050, 1060 project. What I struggle with there is always what it is we want students to be able to do and know when they leave 1050 or leave 1060. I think that's a really dynamic and fluid and always changing problem or opportunity. So I'm always sort of reworking those things and trying to get students to do service that somehow gives them experience, evidence, data, perspectives that shape their work. In English 2100, African American literature, I tried to do a project where we teach literature back to public school students. We want to share the wonderful things we're reading and to be able to get other students involved.
Yeah.
And always trying to figure out a way to get students reading and writing in the things that they enjoy.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah. On that note, thank you both so much for coming to talk to us today. Scott, Dr. Hicks, and Hannah, thank you. And thanks to our viewers. We'll continue talking to faculty and students in service learning this semester. I'm Hannah Baggott-Anderson. See you next time.